What if I told you that seeing too much could destroy you? But why would a gift like that be dangerous? Why people who see too much struggle? Imagine walking into a room and before anyone even speaks, you already know what's going on beneath the surface. You notice the coworker forcing a smile that doesn't reach their eyes. You sense the tension between two people who just had an argument. You pick up on the subtle shift in energy when someone walks in carrying unspoken anger. For most people, these little signals slip by unnoticed. They laugh, they chat, they move on without ever thinking twice. But for a certain kind of person, those signals aren't invisible. They're overwhelming. When you're wired to see everything, you can't turn it off. You don't get to say, "I'd rather not notice today." It's like having a radar that constantly scans the emotions, intentions, and hidden truths of everyone around you. And while others might enjoy the moment on the surface, you're drowning in the undercurrents. You don't just see a fake smile, you feel the sadness behind it. You don't just notice the confidence in someone's speech, you sense the insecurity underneath. It's like standing in a room full of radio stations all playing at once, and you can hear every frequency. The real struggle is that you can't explain it to others without sounding strange or even paranoid. People brush it off. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. But deep down you know you're not wrong. You can see what they can't, or maybe what they don't want to see. And that's the problem. Society runs on little white lies, on unspoken agreements to look the other way. But when you see through everything, you can't play along. You don't laugh at the joke, because you sense the bitterness behind it. You don't enjoy the party because you're aware of the hidden conflicts no one wants to acknowledge. What makes this ability heavy is not just the noticing, it's the loneliness that comes with it. Because while everyone else is comfortable in the illusion, you're stuck living in the truth. And when you carry that truth everywhere you go, it doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like a burden. This is why people who see too much struggle, not because they're weak, but because they can't unsee what's right in front of them. Jung's discovery of differentiated perception. When Carl Jung first began documenting the people who could see beneath the surface, he realized he wasn't looking at ordinary sensitivity. These weren't people who simply picked up on body language or noticed when someone was upset. They had something far deeper. An uncanny ability to sense what was hidden, unspoken, and often unconscious. Jung described this as differentiated perception, a type of awareness that allowed individuals to read not just expressions but the emotions and motives behind them. In his clinical practice, Jung came across patients who seemed to walk into a room and instantly grasp the entire psychological atmosphere. They could tell who was secretly angry, who was lying, who was holding back tears, even if no words were spoken. For them, human interaction wasn't just about what was said out loud, it was about the invisible layers of tension, repression, and conflict that everyone else ignored. Jung was fascinated because these observations were consistently accurate. When he questioned them further, he found their insights lined up with reality more often than chance would allow. At first glance, you might assume these people were delusional or paranoid. But Jung stressed that they weren't psychotic and they weren't unstable. In fact, they were the opposite. Their minds were tuned in to truths most people couldn't handle. It wasn't that they imagined things, it was that they perceived too much. Jung noted that these individuals weren't suffering from illness, but from the overwhelming weight of clarity. To him, it was as though their unconscious minds were more awake than anyone else's. This led Jung to a radical idea. Perhaps the danger wasn't in madness, but in too much consciousness. Most of us survive by filtering, by ignoring what's uncomfortable, by staying blind to certain realities. But the people Jung studied had no such filter. They were wide open, and being that open came with a cost. They carried truths that no one wanted to hear. They noticed lies no one wanted to admit. They became witnesses to the unconscious world that others would rather keep hidden. For Jung, this was one of his most startling discoveries. He wasn't studying broken minds. He was studying the psychological cost of awareness itself, the price of seeing reality too clearly. The case study that shocked Jung in 1913, during one of the most turbulent times in his own life, Jung encountered a patient who would leave a lasting mark on his understanding of the human mind. This woman, highly introverted and unusually intuitive, wasn't like the others who came to him seeking treatment. She didn't show the typical signs of psychosis or neurosis. Instead, she had an extraordinary ability that unsettled Jung. She could walk into any room and instantly sense what was happening beneath the surface. She knew who was lying. She knew who was secretly in pain. She felt the resentments and hidden conflicts that no one dared to voice. At first, Jung thought this might be exaggeration, but as he spoke with her and tested her perceptions, he was stunned. Time after time, her observations proved correct. She described people as if she had access to their private thoughts, and Jung, through careful questioning, verified her accuracy. This wasn't guesswork. It wasn't imagination. It was something sharper, a heightened consciousness that went far beyond ordinary intuition. But what disturbed Jung most was not her ability itself, but the effect it had on her life. She couldn't hold a normal conversation because she instantly saw through small talk and social facades. She couldn't maintain friendships because people felt exposed and uncomfortable in her presence. Even holding a job was impossible because her awareness disrupted the unspoken agreements that allow groups to function. Most workplaces, most friendships, even most families, rely on a certain level of pretending. They depend on people not saying everything they notice. This woman couldn't pretend, and that made her a threat to the fragile harmony of social life. Jung realized he wasn't treating a sickness. He wasn't dealing with someone detached from reality. He was dealing with someone who saw reality too clearly. The real danger wasn't madness, it was clarity. She lived in a world without filters, where every hidden emotion and every unspoken truth pressed down on her. And instead of giving her power, it left her isolated and exhausted. For Jung, this case shattered the idea that perception is always an advantage. Sometimes he saw, seeing too much can strip away the illusions that make human connection possible, and that's when perception stops being a gift and starts becoming a curse. The psychological cost of seeing too much. When you see too much, even ordinary social interactions become exhausting. Small talk, which most people navigate effortlessly, becomes unbearable. Every casual comment, every polite smile, every friendly laugh carries layers of hidden meaning that you can't ignore. You hear the subtext, sense the tension, and notice the unspoken motives behind each word. While others can enjoy the surface of a conversation, people who see too much are trapped under its weight. A simple chat isn't lighthearted, it's a constant calculation of truths hidden behind masks, and it drains their energy before the conversation even ends. Being around groups of people amplifies this burden. In a group there are layers of unconscious agreements, tensions and conflicts that no one openly acknowledges. Most people unconsciously filter these out to survive socially, but someone with heightened perception absorbs every detail. They can feel the discomfort between two coworkers, sense the envy of a friend, or pick up the subtle power plays happening unnoticed. For them, social gatherings aren't enjoyable, they're overwhelming. Every interaction requires mental effort and emotional energy just to process, leaving them exhausted, even if nothing bad is happening. The hardest part is how others respond. People often feel uncomfortable around someone who sees through their facade. When you notice hidden truths or unconscious motives, it can feel like exposure to those around you. They sense that you're aware of things they wish to hide, and that awareness makes them uneasy. Friends might drift away, colleagues may keep their distance, and casual acquaintances may avoid you altogether. It isn't about being unlikable, it's about the invisible tension your perception creates. You're a mirror reflecting realities people would rather ignore, and that reflection can be uncomfortable, even threatening. This constant awareness comes at a psychological cost. It isolates you, wears you down, and makes ordinary social life feel impossible. You're aware of the emotional and psychological currents in every interaction, but no one else sees them. That gap between what you perceive and what others acknowledge becomes a persistent source of stress. Being too conscious doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your relationships, your work, and your sense of belonging. In essence, seeing too much creates a life where clarity comes with loneliness, where insight comes with isolation, and where understanding the truth of others can leave you painfully disconnected from the world around you. Participation mystique. Absorbing the atmosphere. Jung observed something extraordinary in the people he studied. Their awareness didn't stop at noticing subtle expressions or hidden motives, they went deeper. He called this phenomenon participation mystique, the unconscious absorption of other people's emotions, tensions, and unspoken conflicts. Essentially, their minds acted like a psychic sponge, soaking up not just what people consciously expressed, but the entire emotional atmosphere of their environment. Every feeling, every worry, every hidden fear in the room became their own. Imagine being at a dinner party and sensing the unspoken arguments between two friends, feeling the disappointment of someone who is forcing a smile, or absorbing the quiet anxiety of a coworker worried about their job. Most of us might notice a little tension, but these individuals experienced it all at once. Their consciousness didn't just register the surface, it merged with the hidden currents of everyone around them, and this wasn't just an occasional overload, it was a constant state. The emotions, the secrets, the stress of others weren't external, they became internalized. Every interaction left them emotionally heavier than it should have. A modern way to understand this is through the experience of highly sensitive people. Think about a time you left a gathering feeling completely drained, even though nothing dramatic happened. Maybe everyone was polite, even cheerful, but somehow you walked away exhausted, weighed down by invisible energy you couldn't explain. Now imagine living like that every single day. That's what Jung observed in his patients. They didn't just feel more, they absorbed more. Every room, every conversation, every social encounter added layers to their emotional load, leaving them fatigued and overstimulated. Participation mystique explains why these highly perceptive individuals often struggle with social life. It's not that they dislike people or lack social skills, it's that their psychic capacity is constantly overwhelmed. They experience not only their own emotions, but the accumulated unconscious content of everyone they interact with. This creates a heavy psychological burden that most people can't understand. Jung realized that this isn't a weakness, it's the price of seeing too much. Their extraordinary sensitivity, while remarkable, comes with a cost, living fully immersed in the emotional world of others, never able to escape it, and often paying a price in isolation, exhaustion, and profound loneliness. Modern validation. Highly sensitive people. Decades after Jung made his groundbreaking observations, modern research began to validate what he had noticed. Psychologist Elaine Aron introduced the concept of highly sensitive people, or HSPs, showing that roughly 20% of the population experience heightened emotional and sensory sensitivity. These individuals are more attuned to subtle cues in their environment. They notice small changes in tone, facial expressions, or body language that most people miss. They feel emotions deeply, both their own and those of the people around them, and are often easily overstimulated by crowded or chaotic settings. Aron's research confirmed Jung's intuition that some people perceive more than others, but it also gave modern science a framework to understand sensitivity as a trait rather than a disorder. Jung had observed the effects of heightened perception almost a century earlier, noting how certain individuals absorbed not only conscious signals, but unconscious tensions and hidden motives. In this sense, Jung was far ahead of his time, recognizing patterns in human perception that would only later be confirmed with research and data. However, there's an important distinction. While HSPs are sensitive to external stimuli and emotional nuance, Jung identified a much rarer subset, roughly 1% of the population, whose perception goes far beyond heightened sensitivity. These people don't just feel emotions or sense discomfort, they perceive hidden truths. They detect unconscious patterns, see through social masks, and sense motives that others would never even consider. Their awareness extends into realms that ordinary HSPs might never experience. They aren't just sensitive, they are extraordinarily conscious of realities that remain invisible to nearly everyone else. This tiny percentage of individuals, according to Jung, carries both incredible insight and significant risk. Their ability to see what others cannot can lead to wisdom, intuition, and profound understanding, but it also comes with isolation, exhaustion, and a sense of alienation. Modern HSP research helps us understand part of this experience, the deep emotional attunement, but Jung's observations show us what happens when that perception becomes extreme. It is not merely sensitivity, it is an almost psychic clarity, a window into the hidden workings of human behavior that most people are blind to. By linking Jung's early work with contemporary science, we can see a continuum. Sensitivity exists on a spectrum, and at its most extreme, it transforms into a rare kind of perception that is as enlightening as it is dangerous. Those who inhabit this space live in a world most of us can't even imagine, seeing truths that are invisible yet impossible to ignore. Society's rejection of truth seers. Jung once wrote that people who see too much become mirrors that society cannot bear to look into. It's a powerful statement, and it captures the reality faced by those rare individuals who perceive hidden truths. When someone sees through social masks, exposes unconscious motives, or recognizes what others are desperately trying to ignore, it creates discomfort. Most people rely on small illusions to navigate daily life, pretending everything is fine, overlooking unspoken conflicts, or ignoring inconvenient truths. A person who refuses to look away, who notices everything, becomes a reflection of realities society would rather leave hidden. And that reflection is not always welcomed. History is filled with examples of truth seekers who faced rejection, or even persecution for seeing clearly. Whistleblowers expose corruption and are often ostracized. Visionaries challenge the status quo and are labeled as troublemakers. Philosophers and reformers who reveal uncomfortable truths are frequently misunderstood or dismissed. The reason isn't their ideas, it's that their clarity forces others to confront realities they aren't ready to face. Seeing too much threatens the delicate balance of social comfort, and society instinctively recoils. Even in everyday life, the same pattern emerges on a smaller scale. Think about the friend who always points out the truth, no matter how inconvenient, or the coworker who refuses to sugarcoat feedback. They are often labeled too blunt or too intense. People may like them in theory, but interacting with them consistently feels uncomfortable because they make others face their own flaws or hidden motives. Being too honest disrupts the polite agreements that keep relationships smooth. The reactions aren't personal, they're social. Humans have evolved to maintain harmony through selective ignorance, and those who pierce that veil naturally stand apart. For the truth seer, this rejection is isolating. It's not a lack of skill or charm, it's the social cost of clarity. The more accurately they see, the less tolerated they become. Friendships become fragile, work relationships strained, and casual interactions tense. They live in a world where their perception is accurate, yet unwelcome. Jung recognized this tension and warned that the danger of seeing too much isn't madness, it's social alienation. The ability to perceive hidden truths is extraordinary, but it comes with a cost, being a mirror that reflects what others cannot or will not acknowledge, often leaving the observer alone, misunderstood, and painfully aware of the invisible truths everyone else pretends not to see. The isolation trap for people who see too much. Isolation isn't a choice, it's often the unavoidable result of their perception. When you constantly notice the hidden motives, unspoken tensions, and subtle deceptions around you, normal social interactions start to feel unnatural. Conversations feel shallow because you can see the truth beneath the words. Friendships feel fragile because people are uncomfortable with the clarity you bring. Workplaces feel tense because your awareness exposes what everyone else is trying to ignore. Over time, this constant insight pushes others away, not because of anything you've done wrong, but simply because your presence makes them confront realities they'd rather avoid. This creates a unique kind of loneliness. It's not the ordinary solitude of someone who prefers quiet, it's the weight of always being the outsider. You understand the unspoken dynamics, but no one else does.
You sense the invisible currents that shape behavior, but others continue to act as if nothing exists beneath the surface. And because you can't unsee or unfeel these layers, you remain separated from the world that everyone else seems to navigate with ease. It's a loneliness that isn't fixed by company or conversation. It's a structural gap between your perception and the collective awareness of those around you. Many who experience this may feel like they don't belong anywhere. They can be surrounded by people yet still feel profoundly alone. Even when they try to explain their awareness, others often dismiss it, label it as overthinking, or avoid engaging with the depth they bring. This reinforces the isolation, creating a cycle where the variability that makes them insightful also keeps them apart. For viewers who recognize themselves in this description, this can feel deeply validating. It's a reminder that the sense of being different or misunderstood isn't a flaw, it's the result of seeing and feeling more than most people do. While it can be painful, it also points to a rare kind of clarity and understanding. The isolation trap is real, and it's heavy, but it's also a sign that your perception is exceptional. Understanding this dynamic is the first step toward managing it, finding your balance, and eventually discovering that this sense of separation can also become the source of your strength and insight. The isolation trap for people who see too much. Isolation isn't a choice, it's often the unavoidable result of their perception. When you constantly notice the hidden motives, unspoken tensions, and subtle deceptions around you, normal social interactions start to feel unnatural. Conversations feel shallow because you can see the truth beneath the words. Friendships feel fragile because people are uncomfortable with the clarity you bring. Workplaces feel tense because your awareness exposes what everyone else is trying to ignore. Over time, this constant insight pushes others away, not because of anything you've done wrong, but simply because your presence makes them confront realities they'd rather avoid. This creates a unique kind of loneliness. It's not the ordinary solitude of someone who prefers quiet, it's the weight of always being the outsider. You understand the unspoken dynamics, but no one else does. You sense the invisible currents that shape behavior, but others continue to act as if nothing exists beneath the surface. And because you can't unsee or unfeel these layers, you remain separated from the world that everyone else seems to navigate with ease. It's a loneliness that isn't fixed by company or conversation. It's a structural gap between your perception and the collective awareness of those around you. Many who experience this may feel like they don't belong anywhere. They can be surrounded by people yet still feel profoundly alone. Even when they try to explain their awareness, others often dismiss it, label it as overthinking, or avoid engaging with the depth they bring. This reinforces the isolation, creating a cycle where the variability that makes them insightful also keeps them apart. For viewers who recognize themselves in this description, this can feel deeply validating. It's a reminder that the sense of being different or misunderstood isn't a flaw, it's the result of seeing and feeling more than most people do. While it can be painful, it also points to a rare kind of clarity and understanding. The isolation trap is real, and it's heavy, but it's also a sign that your perception is exceptional. Understanding this dynamic is the first step toward managing it, finding your balance, and eventually discovering that this sense of separation can also become the source of your strength and insight. The double-edged sword, curse or transformation. Seeing too much is a double-edged sword. On one side lies the curse, a path that leads to exhaustion, alienation, and mental burnout. Imagine carrying the weight of every hidden motive, unspoken tension, and secret emotion in every room you enter. Ordinary interactions that others take for granted become draining battles of perception. Over time, this relentless awareness takes a toll on the mind and body. Social isolation becomes almost inevitable because others can't handle the clarity you bring. Friendships fade, professional relationships strain, and the simple act of being around people can feel unbearable. The curse of seeing too much isn't dramatic, it's slow, quiet, and cumulative. It erodes your energy, leaving you depleted, misunderstood, and disconnected.
You're right where you need to be. Crying in prayer means you're not afraid to show up real. And do you know how rare that is? Most people go through life with a mask on. They act like everything is fine. They carry silent battles no one sees, but not you. You stepped into prayer, you let the walls drop, and you allowed yourself to feel. That's not weakness. That's the purest form of strength. And here's what I want to encourage you with: every tear you've ever cried in prayer has meaning. God doesn't waste tears. He doesn't ignore them. The Bible even says He collects them. That means your tears are not just falling to the ground. They're building something. They're watering seeds you can't even see yet. They're shaping your future in ways you'll look back on one day and say, "Now I understand why that moment had to happen." I want you to hear this loud and clear: crying in prayer is proof that God is near. You don't cry like that in a vacuum. You cry like that because His presence is brushing against places in your heart you didn't even know were still tender. He's pulling things out, healing wounds, lifting burdens. And the very fact that you can feel that so deeply is a sign that you are not abandoned, you are not forgotten, you are being shaped. Now let me flip this into empowerment. The next time you find yourself crying in prayer, instead of walking away drained, walk away declaring, "That was my reset." Because that's exactly what it is. Those tears are like hitting the restart button on your soul. They wash away heaviness you didn't even realize you were carrying. They clear space for peace, for clarity, for strength to rise back up in you. Don't underestimate the power of that release. You know that feeling after a good cry, when your chest feels lighter, your breathing feels deeper, and somehow the world looks a little different. Multiply that by 1,000 when it happens in prayer. Because in that moment, it's not just your body releasing, it's your spirit aligning. It's God stepping into the cracks and filling them with His presence. So here's what I want you to do. If you've ever cried while praying, drop a simple in the comments right now. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now. Let's fill this space with proof that God is touching lives, healing hearts, and lifting burdens. Imagine the impact when someone scrolls down and sees hundreds, even thousands of people saying, "Yes, I've been there too." That's not just community, that's ministry. And if this spoke to you, if it lifted you, if it gave you the reminder you didn't even know you needed, hit that subscribe button, because here's the truth: life is heavy, and we all need reminders like this to keep going. And every week I'll be right here, giving you words that pull you closer to purpose, closer to faith, closer to strength. So comment below, subscribe, and share this with someone you know needs to hear it. Because crying in prayer doesn't mean you're finished. It means God's just getting started with you.